The widowed millionaire's twins weren't sleeping at all until the new black nanny did something that changed everything. That woman is drugging the children. The accusation from Gloria, the housekeeper, echoed through the elegant hall of the Whitmore mansion like a gunshot. Mr. James, it's not possible that two children who were awake all night are now sleeping like angels. She's doing something illegal to those babies. Kesha Williams, only 28 years old, stood motionless in the center of the marble hall, watching the 60-year-old housekeeper gesticulate dramatically in front of her employer. The accusations didn't surprise her. In fact, she had predicted this moment exactly 3 weeks earlier, when she agreed to care for the 4-year-old twins who had terrorized nannies for 6 months straight. James Whitmore, real estate mogul and inconsolable widower, looked between his 15-year housekeeper and the young black nanny who had transformed his home from a place of constant screaming into an oasis of peace. For the first time since his wife's death, his daughters, Ruby and Rose, slept 8 hours straight every night. Gloria, those are very serious accusations, he murmured, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Serious, Mr. James? This person arrived here from the outskirts of Detroit with no proper references. Gloria spat the words like poison. And suddenly our girls, who screamed from nightmares every night, sleep like babies? Something is very wrong. Kesha took a deep breath, her eyes briefly meeting James. There was something in that look. It wasn't just gratitude for the peace she had brought to the house, but a genuine curiosity about who she really was. Why would a woman with her refined education and impressive knowledge of child development take a job that made other nannies run away in tears? If you insist on investigating my methods, Kesha said with a calmness that made Gloria hesitate for a moment, I suggest we install cameras in the girls' room. That way, everyone can see exactly what happens during the nights. The suggestion took everyone by surprise. A guilty person would never ask for more surveillance. James frowned, studying the nanny's serene face. There was something about her demeanor, an unshakable confidence that didn't fit with a mere child caregiver. Over the past few days, he had noticed strange details. Kesha spoke 3 languages fluently, quoted child neuroscience studies with academic precision, and had a presence that made even important visitors respect her opinions about the children. 3 weeks earlier, when the employment agency had called offering her services, he had been desperate. 6 nannies had quit in less than 2 months. Ruby and Rose, traumatized by their mother's sudden death in a car accident, spent their nights screaming, crying, refusing to sleep. The entire house was in a state of exhaustion. Gloria had always made her opinion clear about those kinds of people taking care of children from good families. But when Kesha arrived that first afternoon, something changed instantly. The twins, who were normally hostile toward strangers, approached her with curiosity. And that first night, miracle, they slept for 6 hours straight. Cameras? Gloria stammered, clearly not expecting that answer. Well, that's not necessary if she just... Actually, Kesha interrupted, taking her cell phone out of her pocket. I've already recorded some of our nighttime routines to document the girls' progress. Would you like to see? There was absolute silence. James noticed a subtle change in Gloria's expression. From defiance to something close to panic. There, in the center of that hall where generations of privileged families had made decisions about the fate of employees, Kesha stood firm, guarding secrets too powerful to be revealed before the time was right. If this story of prejudice disguised as concern touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened next would show that underestimating people because of their appearance can be the biggest mistake of your life. Gloria was not willing to back down. In her 15 years working for the Whitmore family, she had built a reputation for unquestionable loyalty, and she would not allow an opportunist to destroy her privileged position in the house. Mr. James, you need to understand what's going on here, she insisted, walking over to the window overlooking the garden, where Ruby and Rose were playing for the first time in months. This woman shows up out of nowhere with no proper references from respectable families, and suddenly, she has magical powers with children? Please. James watched his daughters running freely across the lawn, their laughter echoing for the first time since their mother's funeral. It was impossible to deny the transformation. They were eating regularly, sleeping 8 hours a night, and had even returned to preschool without panic attacks. Gloria, maybe you're overreacting. Clearly the girls are being manipulated, the housekeeper interrupted, her voice rising an octave. And you don't see it because you're desperate for a solution.
But I know her type.
They arrive humble, perform temporary miracles, and then start asking for favors. First a raise, then expensive gifts for her family, then access to his accounts. Kesha stood motionless, watching Gloria's dramatic performance with a serene expression that only irritated the housekeeper more. In fact, that reaction was exactly what she had expected from day one. 3 weeks earlier, when she got off the bus at the corner of the Whitmore mansion, Kesha knew exactly what she was getting herself into. Growing up in Detroit, the daughter of a cleaning lady who worked for wealthy families, she had witnessed the same dynamic countless times. Established employees protecting their turf against newcomers, especially when those newcomers didn't fit the right profile. What Gloria didn't know was that Kesha Williams had a master's degree in child psychology from the University of Michigan, had worked as a pediatric trauma consultant at 3 hospitals, and had chosen this job for very specific reasons that had nothing to do with money. You know what bothers me the most? Gloria continued, now clearly losing her composure. It's her calmness. A normal woman would be nervous being accused of drugging children, but look at her. She's standing there like, she knows something we don't. James frowned. He had to admit, Gloria's observation had some merit. Kesha did display an almost disturbing confidence, like someone who was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Actually, Kesha said softly, I do know something you don't. The silence was absolute. Gloria paled slightly, as if she had just invoked something she wasn't prepared to face. I know Ruby wakes up at 2:30 in the morning because she dreams she's falling, just like her mother did when the car rolled over. Kesha continued, her voice remaining calm. I know that Rose can't sleep until she checks that all the doors are locked because in her subconscious, the house isn't safe anymore, since Mom left and didn't come back. James felt a chill run down his spine. How did she know such specific details about his daughter's nightmares? He had never told anyone about the accident, or how Amanda had been found. I also know, Kesha continued, now looking directly at Gloria, that you've been telling the other nannies in the neighborhood that this family needs someone of the same social standing to take care of the girls. Very interesting messages in the Elite Domestic Professionals WhatsApp group, aren't they? Gloria's face went from pale to red in a matter of seconds. How did you? I never. Oh, but you did. You even suggested that I was probably here to pull a fast one on the lonely widower. That's a direct quote from your messages last Thursday. James turned slowly to Gloria, an expression of disbelief growing on his face. Is this true? The housekeeper stammered, clearly panicking. How did this woman have access to his private messages? And why did she seem to know exactly which buttons to push? Kesha remained calm, but her eyes flashed with something Gloria finally recognized as danger. Here was a woman who not only knew their secrets, but had come prepared for this exact confrontation. The truth, Mr. Whitmore, is that I took this job because your family needs much more than just a nanny. She turned to Gloria, smiling softly. And Gloria has been actively preventing any real progress in this house for much longer than you realize. For the first time since he had known the housekeeper, James saw genuine fear in her eyes. And for the first time since he had hired Kesha, he began to suspect that there was much more to this quiet woman than met the eye. Every accusation Gloria made only seemed to strengthen something inside Kesha. A silent strength that grew in direct proportion to the injustice being tried to be imposed on her. As if every act of contempt was fueling a plan far greater than any of those present could imagine. Do you want to know the truth about what's going on in this house? Kesha asked, her voice maintaining that calm tone that was beginning to unsettle even James. Then, let's start at the very beginning. She walked over to the side table and picked up a leather folder that James had never seen before. Gloria, are you sure you want to continue with these accusations? Because once I open this folder, there's no turning back. The panic in the housekeeper's eyes was almost palpable now. Mr. James, she's trying to intimidate us. This is exactly the kind of manipulative behavior I was talking about. But James watched, fascinated, by the transformation taking place before his eyes. The woman he had hired as a nanny was revealing layers of complexity that completely defied his expectations. Kesha wasn't just polite. She was strategic. She wasn't just competent. She was formidable. 3 weeks ago, when I accepted this job, Kesha continued, opening the folder, it wasn't because I desperately needed work. It was because I got a very interesting call from someone you know well. She pulled up an audio recording on her phone. Dr. Patricia Coleman, the pediatrician who's been treating Ruby and Rose for 2 years. She contacted me after Gloria called her to question my professional competence, before I even started working here. James felt a chill run down his spine. Gloria, you called the girl's pediatrician? I I just wanted to check if she knew this person, Gloria stammered, realizing she had fallen into a trap she didn't even know existed. Kesha pressed play. Dr. Coleman's clear voice echoed through the room. Gloria, I need to tell you something. Kesha Williams is not just an ordinary nanny. She has a master's degree in child psychology and specializes in pediatric trauma. When I heard she'd accepted the Whitmore twins, I was intrigued. A professional of her caliber doesn't take domestic work out of necessity. The silence that followed was broken only by the muffled sound of children playing in the garden. James looked at Kesha as if seeing her for the first time. You have a master's degree? University of Michigan, she replied softly. I worked at Detroit Children's Hospital for 5 years before opening my own child trauma clinic. She leaned forward. The question, Mr. Whitmore, is, why would a psychologist specializing in trauma close a successful clinic to work as a nanny? Gloria was visibly panicking now. That doesn't make sense. If you're so qualified, why did I take a job that pays 1/10 of what I used to earn? Kesha finished for her. Because it wasn't about the money, Gloria. It was about justice. She pulled out another folder. 6 months ago, James, you fired an employee from your company for cultural incompatibility. Do you remember Marcus Johnson? The black engineer who designed your latest residential complex? James frowned, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus. Yes, there were some issues. The issues were that Gloria suggested to your HR manager that employees like him might not fit the Whitmore image. She placed a document on the table. Email dated March 3rd, copied to 5 board members. Gloria turned pale. How do you have access to internal company emails? Because Marcus Johnson is my younger brother. The revelation hit the room like a bomb. And when he told me about the systematic discrimination he suffered here, I decided to personally investigate the family environment that created that kind of professional mentality. James sank into an armchair, stunned. His house